Hey folks. First of all, a little disclaimer. I never know what level of knowledge I'm speaking to with my audience. This has kind of been an ongoing problem. I'm trying to get better at it, but I don't want to bore or insult you. So if you've been in this realm of YouTube for a while, or you've studied Marxist influence before, much of this is common knowledge, and I'm not sure you're going to get any new information from this video. But you will from part 2 of this, so just hang tight for another day and go ahead and just skip this. Okay. So the mood here in America feels like it has shifted, and I believe that this is because we, as a nation, have reached the tipping point. And the behavior of students and staff and the police at Berkeley illuminated for all to see the oh-so-predictable pandemonium resulting from mass Marxist indoctrination in academia. And this particularly deranged leftist violence is no isolated event. It comes on the heels of many like it and has been cheered on and bolstered and fueled by a completely compromised mainstream media and a disconnected, lofty Hollywood elite. For those of you that think that our work is done because Trump has been elected, I would like to remind you that the left has unequivocally won the culture war, and Trump is merely our first step in cutting out the malignant Marxist cancer that has infiltrated every level of our society. Legacy media still reaches millions, Hollywood is reaching even more and on a deeper level subconsciously, and American colleges are still churning out useful idiots on a daily basis. I was born in 1987, so I've only really experienced in America deeply entrenched in Marxism. And when you grow up in this environment, and it's all you've ever known, there's a tremendous incentive to stay the course so that you don't have to admit your own responsibility in adopting a destructive worldview or destructive behavior. But after unraveling the Marxist education that I received at Mizzou, I really wanted to know how this happened to our country. I wanted to know who was responsible for eroding our values and forcing upon us this malaise and cultural pessimism that is so palpable, particularly amongst millennials and baby boomers. I've discussed this a little bit on my channel, but I read the Communist Manifesto at Mizzou, and I remember being inspired by this concept of a unified international proletariat. And it's a nice idea to entertain, pretending that people are capable of putting their in-group preferences aside to protect others in comparable socioeconomic spheres, irrespective of their nation or their religion, whatever. But of course, this was going to be impossible because without fail, people are loyal to their race, to their religion, and to their nationality above all else. Marxists were disillusioned by this because it shattered their classist worldview and disrupted their globalist agenda. Of course, when war broke out, the proletariat put on their uniforms and got out there like they do in all wars. And the remaining and subsequent Marxist scholars were left wondering why their theories were so wrong. And then they came to the conclusion that Western democracy and capitalism had polluted their working class. And until these things specifically were destroyed, communism was impossible to implement. So they had to find other ways to institute Marxism in the West without exploiting the plight of the working class, which they knew would fail. As a result, the Frankfurt School of Thought developed. Naturally, the Nazis forced these Marxists out, where they relocated to the United States, and more specifically, Columbia University. So the Frankfurt School developed critical theory, which is the principle that states that all aspects of life should be viewed and reevaluated through the lens of Marxism. Its core tenet is that morality is a social construct entirely, and there really are no absolute truths. It was meant to encourage the young to view the West with a critical eye, questioning all traditional teachings and our shared sense of morality. If there's no absolute truth, then why should one accept the teachings of their culture or the long-standing traditions? And when each individual has a different set of moral standards, and there is no uniting sense of moral duty, a complete breakdown of a nation's social fabric is all but inevitable. Antonio Gramsci was a key figure in 20th century Western Marxism. He wrote thousands of pages of Marxist instructional literature while he was in prison, and in these prison notebooks, he correctly explains that in order for workers to unite, which was the objective of the old Lenin Marxists, first institutions need to be subverted. The long march through institutions, working against the established institutions while working within them, but not simply by boring from within, rather by doing the job. Learning how to program and read computers, how to teach at all levels of education, how to use the mass media, how to organize production, how to recognize and eschew planned obsolescence, how to design, etc. And at the same time, preserving one's own consciousness and working with others. So basically, a Marxist needs to infiltrate all Western institutions by learning how they work for the sole purpose of exploiting and undermining them, all the while quietly preserving the tenets of Marxism. The West is guilty of genocidal crimes against every civilization and culture it has encountered. American and Western civilization are the world's greatest repositories for racism, sexism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, fascism, and Nazism. American society is oppressive, evil, and undeserving of loyalty. I see the revolutionary destruction of society as the one and only solution. A worldwide overturning of values cannot take place without the annihilation of the old values and a creation of the new ones by the revolution. And Gramsci, who we just discussed, said, quote, "The Western world has been thoroughly saturated with Christianity for 2,000 years. Any country grounded in Judeo-Christian values cannot therefore be overthrown until those roots are cut. But to cut the roots, to change the culture, a long march through the institutions is necessary. Only then will power fall into our laps like ripened fruit." So the clearly stated objective of the Frankfurt School is to subvert Western culture by infiltrating media, Hollywood, literature, art, and academia. And when the chaos overtakes the stability of the nuclear family and other core Western values, there will be pervasive government dependence and communism or socialism can be erected. Marxists were already successful once they permeated academia, which happened the very second that Columbia University became a safe haven for the Frankfurt School. They were able to write influential literature, teach courses, and train other professors in critical theory and other methods that are effective in initiating a complete societal collapse. It was during this period that we saw encouragement of sexual liberation, that we saw the nuclear family be disparaged in film and literature, and that men were painted as irredeemable, inherently oppressive abusers. The Marxist influence in film, literature, art, and academia quickly eroded the wholesome mentality of previous generations in favor of pessimism towards marriage, towards men, and more generally towards Western culture. In prior generations, your average person just wanted to get a stable job, be with a nice lady, and have a quiet life with a happy family. This was the breadth of the middle class. Marxists knew that if they destroyed the traditional family, the middle class would come undone completely. They knew that with sexual liberation and the death of marriage, there would be children out of wedlock that needed support, and in the absence of fathers, the state would have to step in. Although there were many tactics employed, this particular objective was largely achieved through no-fault divorce laws. Because of a lack of social responsibility to stay with your family, and in fact a financial incentive for women to get divorced, an entire industry of folks in the business of stripping men of their wealth was created, establishing new branches of our labor and legal infrastructure rooted in cultural cynicism, specifically as it pertains to marriage and a family. Horrible custody disputes and two-home families were the direct and intended result. Children are split between their homes, often bribed with consumer goods by their guilt-ridden parents. And then, because both parties now must work, the kids are put in daycare or public schools where their values are formed and established by the federal government and academics, which we know are overwhelmingly Marxist. It was such a slow burn that no one even seemed to notice. Millennials have never experienced any other phase in our country's history and also are woefully ignorant of world history. All we were taught in schools was the horror of Nazism, and communism was largely skipped over. Just check out this NYU professor and the absolute tizzy she has worked herself into while protesting Gavin McInnes.
You're not protecting the NYU students here, and I'm disgusted! I'm a professor! How dare you! How dare you fucking assholes protect neo-Nazis! These are kids who are trying to learn about humanity! They're trying to learn about human rights and against racism and xenophobia and LGBTQ rights, and you're letting these fucking neo-Nazis near here! You should kick their ass! It's not up to these students to kick the ass of a neo-Nazi! They don't have to raise their fist! They were taught to be peaceful!
It's coming from a professor.
I'm a professor! Fuck you, NYPD!
This is an NYU professor. NYU. That is purportedly a good school, and also is very, very expensive. If professors like this are administering your education, you have just come out of a school with a worthless piece of paper that only indicates that you've been indoctrinated. And now you have $240,000 of student loan debt that will not get paid off because no one wants to hire a whining, crybaby Marxist with no skill set and a strong sense of entitlement. So this is why I say the left has won the culture war. Until we can take back higher institutions of learning, the mainstream media, and Hollywood, conservatives can hold every position of power in the federal government, and it does not matter. It doesn't matter. It is the influence, especially over the young, that we need. So thank you for watching. Check out my video tomorrow on how we can take back our culture, and I'll see you then. Bye.